Hi, in this video I'm going to cover appending tables in Power Query and what to do when you have some mismatched columns. Let's start off first with how it should look. So we have these three tables. They all have two columns or two column tables. They all have the same header, ID and quantity. This is year 2007, ID and quantity 2008, ID and quantity 2009. And they all reside in a folder called data, right? So if I went to a blank query and I wanted to append all these files together, it'd actually be fairly easy to do. I'd go under data, go get data from file, then from folder, because where the assumption is the folder is going to contain the workbooks that have the files that have all the same format. I already made a copy of that folder path, so I'm just going to paste it in and click OK. Now the navigator is going to come up and we've got our files here. I've got these, it should be just these three rows, but I've got these other ones since the files are open. But I'm going to click combine, transform and load, and the navigator will come up. It's going to bring it into Power Query and it's going to look at the first file there. The first file is going to be 2007 because that's the first one that shows up in chronological order. And it's going to ask if this is the way that it should look at the first file, the sample file, and combine it. It's going to do this format, take the first header. It'll take that first workbook and look at that table, and that first row in that 2007 workbook, it's going to say that the ID and quantity is going to be the header. It's going to use this as a sample to append the rest of the workbooks 2008 and 2009. So that's fine. I'll click OK. It's going to bring up the Power Query editor where I can view it, and it should be all pretty much correct because they all are the same, right? Let me double click that to make it a little bit smaller. We see we have our 2007 files and then our 2008 files, and as we see we have our ID and quantity because they were all correct. Now I don't really need this. I can delete it. Well, actually, I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to close the load, and then I'm going to show you what happens if the headers are off. So let's go back into my individual files. Maybe I'll go to 2008 and 2009 and change it. Here for the 2008 one, maybe I'll just call it IDs, give that a plural, IDs, and save that. And I'll change it in 2009 and change that a little bit too. Here I've got 2009. Let's call this one product ID, and we'll spell out quantity here. Now save that. All right, go back into my query here and right click, or I can just right click here, refresh. And now you see that it looks like it got all messed up because now that ID column is called IDs with an S, so that's missing data. In addition, for 2019, it doesn't know what to do because it's called product IDs and it's spelled out quantity. So even though it's a two-column table, it's missing the data because it doesn't know what to do with it. If I go and click into data, you can see that it's made it null. So one solution is to go into each of the individual sheets, 2007, and change it. Actually, 2007 doesn't need to be changed. So you go into 2008 and make sure that that says ID and quantity, and that's sheet 1, and 2009, and do the same thing. ID and quantity, QTY, and sheet 1. Now, with 3 sheets, that's not a problem. With many sheets, and also with people that are giving this to you, with the assumption that, okay, it's only 2 columns, but they like to get creative and they like to change the header name, it becomes kind of problematic. I want to see if we can do this a little bit more systematically. And actually you could, and let's see how that could be done. Now the thing to go back is to look at the steps that Power Query does to enable this whole appending of these files. These are things that get created from Power Query, and the thing to focus in on is this sample file. So this is a sample file that gets created when Power Query uses a template to create this eventual data query. We want to change this a little bit, and so what we want to do is maybe we don't want to have it automatically promote. You can see that there's steps here already for this particular file. Let's not promote the header. Let's do that a little bit later on. Remove that step, and we'll notice that the first row of any of the tables are going to be the header row. So let's put in a index column. We'll start with 0. So that puts in an index column for that particular row. So we'll know that once we use a sample template and combine the other files together, that first row will always have 0 in it. So what we can do is now we can go into our data. We'll remove this because it's looking for an ID column which we demoted, right? Close, remove that step, and now we can see that it's brought everything back in, and now we can just fill in the column headers. Let's promote this one because this is the one that we really wanted, ID and quantity. We're going to promote it here. Go under Home, use first row as headers. So that's going to be the first row as headers. But now since we have this index column, we just need to remove the zeros for the other files that got brought in, and those are the headers there that we don't need. So we're going to filter that out. Okay. And now we have our file. I don't need these rows anymore or these columns anymore. Press Control and then click that one, right click, remove columns, and now we have our data that we need. Click Close and Load, and now I have all the data appended correctly with the correct header information. So that's the way that we can deal with mismatched column names if we're assuming they all have the same columns. It's just people get creative, they want to have their own column names, but it's the same. If you have a short amount of files, going into each file, renaming the columns to make sure they match is one way. The other way, if you had a lot of files and this is something just given to you and people get creative and you want to kind of append all these files together, this is the other way of doing it. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.